September 29th, 2002. The NASCAR Winston Cup Series heads to Kansas Speedway for the Protection 1 400. Sterling Marlin, sitting fourth in points, is looking to rebound after losing the points lead 2 weeks ago at New Hampshire after being the point leader for 25 weeks straight. After halfway into the race, Sterling would be involved in a crash that would end his season as he suffers a fractured vertebrae in his neck, ending his season prematurely. This would also be the end of Sterling's competitive career, as his performance would regress until his retirement in 2009. Even in his mid-40s, Sterling was a top-notch driver and a leader in the Dodge Brigade when Dodge returned in 2001. But there's always that what if. Well, we can recklessly speculate, right? That's fun. Well, what if Sterling Marlin doesn't get injured at Kansas? So to set up our hypothetical results here, we'll get our finishes in a few ways. One way is taking Sterling's average finish at that track or tracks similar, or we'll just place him in a spot where it's close to where he would have ran. Okay, now let's look at the hypothetical situation after Kansas. Sterling is healthy as a mule and is now 5th in points, 121 points behind point leader Jimmie Johnson, and in between Jimmie and Sterling are some hungry drivers. Marlin, who has come so close to the title on 3 separate occasions, Tony Stewart, who finished second in the points last year, and Jeff Gordon, the defending champion, is looking to claim his 5th championship. Now Sterling is in a fairly comfortable position for now, as he is only less than a race behind in points with 7 races left. The maximum amount of points you can score is 185 points, 175 for winning the race, 5 bonus points for leading a lap, and 5 more points if you can lead the most laps. Sterling is still in this battle as long as he can bring home top 5s and top 10s the rest of the season, and everyone else has a mediocre to bad day. Let's head to the next race, Talladega. Sterling has been a contender at the superspeedways all year with a worst finish of 8th at the Daytona 500, a race that he could have won had he used his head. Now the 40 car, with Jamie McMurray, finished 26th after running out of gas in the middle of the race. But Sterling is one of the best on the superspeedways, and in 3 races this season, he averaged a finish of 5.33. So let's hypothetically place Sterling in 6th. He'll score 150 points for the finish, and he probably would have led a lap, so there's 5 more points right there. Plus the other championship contenders besides Tony Stewart had issues before and during the race. So after Talladega, Sterling would move back to 4th in points, 100 points back from the new point leader, Tony Stewart. We now head to the next race, Charlotte. Jamie McMurray wins his first career race in the same exact car Sterling won in last year in the same exact race. So if we put Sterling in that spot, he would have gained the maximum amount of points in that race. After Charlotte, Sterling would have jumped from 4th to 2nd in points, now 85 points behind Tony Stewart. The next week, Martinsville. Mike Bliss is in the car this week, as Jamie is at Memphis racing his Busch car. Mike would finish 14th in that race. Now that's about where Sterling probably would have finished. If we add his previous finishes in 01 and the spring race, he averaged a 9th place finish. But Sterling finished 12th in spring, so let's place him there again. He would finish 1 spot behind Tony Stewart, while Jimmie Johnson and Mark Martin would finish ahead of them. After Martinsville, Sterling drops back to 3rd, 87 points behind Stewart, and 6 points behind Jimmie. But the positive is that Jeff Gordon is out of the championship hunt. The following week, Atlanta. McMurray is back in the car and finishes 7th on the day, which is where we will place Sterling and give him 5 bonus points if he were to lead a lap. But there is a problem. Tony Stewart finished 4th and got 5 bonus points. Now Sterling is back to 2nd in points, but is now 102 points behind Stewart. We now go into Rockingham with 3 races left on the schedule. And if we do the hypothetical math, Sterling needs to gain at least 35 points a race on Stewart to beat him. Not tie, beat him. Rockingham rolls around and Tony Stewart has a subpar day, finishing 14th and didn't lead a lap. Now Jamie happened to finish 15th that day and led a lap. So let's place Sterling in and have him finish 7th, as that is his average finish from 3 previous Rockingham races. That would knock Tony back to 15th and would help Sterling, as he would gain 151 points to Stewart's 118. Leaving Rockingham, the points battle is now down to 3, as Jimmie Johnson is essentially too far back now in points with 2 races to go. Phoenix rolls around, and this race would not go in Sterling's favor. Sterling would only score 4 top 10s in his entire career at Phoenix, and they were all before this race. So in order to determine where we'll place Sterling, we'll add his 4 previous finishes at that track in the 40 car. Those finishes average out to a 25th place finish. So we'll give Sterling 25th place points with no bonuses. Now Tony Stewart and Mark Martin have solid days, as Mark finished 4th with bonus points and Tony finished 8th. Going into Homestead, the point situation looks like this. Tony Stewart leads with Mark Martin 86 points out in 2nd, and Sterling Marlin is back in 3rd, 119 points back. There's only one scenario for Sterling to win the championship, but it is a long shot, and it's to win the race. If Sterling wins the race and gains the maximum amount of points, then Tony has to finish worse than 31st in order to claim the championship, and Mark has to finish worse than 6th. However, that scenario would not play out. While Jamie finished 22nd, we'll put Sterling at 16th, as that is his average finish of the previous 3 races at Homestead, while Mark finished 4th, and Tony would hypothetically finish 19th, with Sterling finishing 3rd in the points for the 3rd time in his career. Even after the strong start, the gap after Kansas would have been just too much for Sterling to overcome. There are some things in this life that just aren't meant to happen. Sterling winning the championship was one of those things, unfortunately. Even with that championship, Sterling is viewed as one of the most respected drivers to have ever been in the top series of NASCAR. And for me, hopefully a member of the NASCAR Hall of Fame in the near future. If there is one word to describe Sterling Marlin, it's resilient. For the majority of his career, Sterling's career was filled up with a bunch of shortcomings and missed opportunities. Even going into the mid-90s and his late 30s, Sterling was still resilient, knowing that he could be a winner. Now, while he was becoming one of the best in his late 30s and the mid-40s, he was competing with the best. But there's always that what if. What if Sterling Marlin had became a champion?